It's fine. Stand in the back.
We're really going to sweat.
Hey, how
Nice
are
to
you?
see you. Nice to see you. Oh, my. Good. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. This beautiful, beautiful day here in the Bay State. Great to see everybody, and really happy to be here today to make an announcement. Massachusetts means business. You know, from the beginning of this administration, we have been focused on how do we make Massachusetts more competitive? How do we make Massachusetts more affordable? How do we make Massachusetts a place where people want to come and raise their families, where employers want to set up shop and expand their business, right? And that's why we got after it hard, working with many of you in this room, cutting taxes in the first year, building more homes so that residents and employees can afford to live here. And we're just continuing to be guided by that focus every single day. Today, we're making an announcement that's in line with that. It's about getting rid of, shredding unnecessary regulations, things that get in the way of businesses being able to do what they need to do. And I am just grateful for the work of my fabulous team, our Interim Secretary of Economic Development, Ashley Stolba, Undersecretary of the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation, Leila D'Amelia. This is your birthday. I don't know if it's... I want to thank the Undersecretary because her team, and I'll introduce the other commissioners, you know, these are the folks who are charged with something really important in government, making sure that we have a really well-run, well-executed government when it comes to intersecting with the business community. And, you know, the work that they did, that I asked them to do a couple of months ago, was fantastic. It is deep, it is meaningful. It's something that we haven't seen the likes of in this state for a long, long time. And they really dug deep. So I want to thank, the Undersecretary for her leadership and taking up this charge. I also want to thank our commissioners. Commissioner David Rodriguez of the Division of Standards, Commissioner Sarah Wilkerson of the Division of Occupational Licensure, Commissioner Mike Caljo of the Division of Insurance, Commissioner Mary Gallagher of the Division of Banks, Commissioner Karen Charles of the Department of Telecommunications and Cable. Thank you all for the work that you did to go through, take the time, you know, to get these to where they need to be. Good for the Commonwealth, good for business, and good for the folks who actually are there working alongside businesses who don't have to deal with stuff that's antiquated, stuff that doesn't make sense anymore. I don't want teams wasting time doing stuff that doesn't make sense, and this was a chance to clear through all of that. I'm going to get a glass of water because I have something. Anyone in a bag? Thanks, Ayub. We also have great guests with us here. Oh, thanks. We also, thank you.
It's water.
It's just water. Great guests with us here today. Partners every step of the way, and those are members of our business community. Our business community is not a big monolith. It comes in all shapes and sizes, a lot of different trade associations, a lot of different folks, but I think everybody joined together in helping us get here today and do what we need to do. And I want to thank John Hurst of the Retailers Association of Massachusetts, Brian Houghton of the Massachusetts Food Association. Also with us, Jim Rooney of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, Brooke Thompson of the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, and J.D. Cheslov of the Massachusetts Business Roundtable. And business owners from across Massachusetts who are here, thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. As I said, for 2.5 years now, we've been focused on making Massachusetts more competitive, more affordable, an easier state to do business in. And I mentioned some of the things that we did. Among other things we did, Mass Leads Act, transformational economic development bill, right? We're firing on a bunch of fronts, applied AI, climate technology, life sciences, but we're also in that bill, which I signed into law, investing in our businesses and removing barriers to growth. We also passed an energy infrastructure bill. I hear from residents and businesses, we've got to bring, energy costs down, and we passed an energy infrastructure law that is going to slash red tape and help us launch an energy affordability agenda, bringing more energy into the state and bringing costs down for everyone. This is about delivering. It's about government showing that it works, and it's about us looking to work in continued partnership with all of you to grow our businesses. So Massachusetts means business. That's the tagline. That's what we're about. Let me tell you what it is. So I asked all of our agencies to go out and look at all their regulations and identify the ones that we could just scrap, the ones that we should get rid of. And they looked at, I think, over 150 sets of regulations. They asked businesses, including some in this room, what can we do? What can we get rid of? What's unnecessary here? And today we're announcing the first set of cuts and reforms. Today we're cutting down 38 different sets of regulations. That's 25% of the total of all regulations, so that's significant in and of itself in just a couple of months. And I'll give you an example. So we learned that grocery stores have to follow these really absurd rules about font size and color size. You familiar with that? No, all right. Well, I am. I have a look. I didn't realize that it was a state regulation. But today, we're getting rid of that. All right. Who's a skier here? Who's a skier? We got some skiers, right? It's not skiing weather, but we have wonderful ski areas here in Massachusetts, and wonderful businesses, and yet they have to take the time to put up these arcane signs on the trails that make no sense. So this is for our ski lifts operators and those who own and operate our ski areas, and I'm just happy to say that we're getting rid of those too. Oh, I understand. Okay, great. There's so much red tape. Look at all this. Yeah. But that is like the size of all the rigs that we're shredding, for real. I'm not going to do it all here today. All right. So here's another one. I love this one. So barbershops. Who doesn't love the striped pole outside a barbershop, right? Super cool, right? We love that image. Guess what? It wasn't meant just for decoration. State law required a barber shop to actually hang a freaking pole right outside the thing, which may be wonderful, right? It does attract, it's a nice, but like really there was a state requirement, so we're getting rid of those barber poles, although continue to hang them if you so desire. But no more required barber poles out there. What else did we do? Oh, yeah, this is some. So we've been in this computer age now for a while here in Massachusetts, and yet we still have banks and insurance companies required to file stuff by paper, all right? Nothing wrong with paper, but that's not where the world is. And so we're getting rid of that, and we'll save some trees in the process, but no more required paperwork. All right, and the last thing, oh yeah, we talked about absurd unit pricing. We talked about the barber shop. Okay, all this stuff. We talked about the paper filings. Okay, all that, right? All that, we're just, I'll do one more just because it's so fun. I love this. Love it. So that's just an example, okay? That's just an example. Look, businesses want, and we in government want, okay? And I say that. Businesses and government together, we want smart regulations, right? We want to protect public health. We want to protect public safety. We want to make sure that shady businesses aren't undercutting businesses that are doing things right by their customers. And that's what today is about. It's about making sure that we have the right regulations, smart regulations. Bottom line is that these changes are going to save businesses time. They're going to save businesses money. And you know who's going to benefit? Customers. customers. So I'm really happy with the work that's been done today. I just remind folks we're the #1 state for innovation. We're not resting on that. We're clearing the way so innovators can innovate and builders can build and entrepreneurs can thrive. And today we're saying to every business, we need you, we believe in you, we want you to grow, we want you to be successful. And know also that the work doesn't stop here, because Massachusetts means business. Today is just a start. We're going to continue to work with businesses, including inviting the public and businesses to tell us what aggravates you, what gets in the way, and what we can get rid of and change, okay? We need your help with that, but I look forward to it. And this is about making sure that Massachusetts is a state where businesses don't just survive, they thrive. That's what we want. With that, I'd like to invite Secretary Stolba up to the podium to say more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor, for that warm introduction, and that is a very tough act to follow, so I will be very brief, and I'm going to turn this off so that it doesn't actually accidentally start shredding something. But I do just want to take a moment to emphasize what the Governor said about the team standing behind me. These are rock stars. Not only do they put together this awesome, comprehensive reform package, but they're also working day in and day out to protect consumers, protect businesses, and to make the Commonwealth amazing. So I really just want to congratulate and thank this team behind me for all the work they do every single day and every single night and every single weekend, because these guys care so much about the work that they do. And I also want to embarrass Layla just one more time. And not only is it her birthday today, but her daughter is also here. I'm embarrassing you too, Sophia. Yay. Sophia just graduated from UMass Amherst a couple weeks ago, so we are so thrilled that you're here. And we're happy to know that you're staying in Massachusetts after, right, Sophia? Yes. Okay, so as I said, I will keep this brief, but I do just want to say also thank you to the businesses. So I know this was a result of a lot of surveys and a roundtable and feedback and all the work that you all did to get us to this place. You were an integral part to that too, so thank you for that. I'll also just mention that, and the Governor said this too, this is one of many things that this administration is doing to make things easier for businesses, to streamline our processes, and also keep Massachusetts competitive. So I'll go over a few things that were included in the Mass Leads Act. So as many of you know, we did an economic development planning process at the beginning of the administration. You know, the Governor said this before, if we were going to do this, we're going to make it awesome, and we're going to take it really seriously. We had 1,200 people participate. Many of you are in this room and behind me. And from that, we heard the same thing that we're talking about now. Our processes are slow. They're very confusing. We have different grant programs and different incentives kind of spread across state government. So one of the things that we'll be launching in a couple of weeks is the business front door. I want to thank John. I know you were very helpful in walking us through and giving us some feedback, and some of you were also very helpful. Thank you. So that's going to be a very easy website where businesses can go to, write their name, write the amount of employees they have, how can we be helpful? And then someone on the back end will be helping that business. So that's something we're doing to streamline things and remind folks that Massachusetts, we're friendly. We want you here. We want you to expand here. And then we also took a look at a lot of the incentives that we offer. So included in Mass Leads are a lot of new programs that we're very excited about, but we also want to take a look at some of the ones that we already have that people love. So one of the programs is the Economic Development Incentive Program that's run out of the Mass Office of Business Development. I know many of you are familiar with this program. There were like thousands of questions, maybe not thousands, hundreds of questions that businesses had to go through, and they were still on paper. I think some people may have still been using a fax machine. So we went through all of those processes and slimmed them down and made it much easier. So those are just two examples of things that we're doing, but the Governor means it when she says it. She's going at us every day to make things easier, more streamlined, and keep us competitive, and we're doing just that. So I'm very grateful to be here today. Congratulations to the team, and congratulations to all of you. And it's now my pleasure to hand it over to our partner, John Hurst.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Governor. I'm pleased to be here this morning because, you know, we have 4,000 members, and anytime I ask our members what bothers you the most about government, it's easily the first words out of the mouth is red tape. Whether you're talking federal government, state government, or local government, the red tape is what drives a small business owner crazy. Because you think about a small business, they don't have HR managers, they don't have staff attorneys, they don't have regulatory compliance staffs. So, you know, just getting their way through the red tape is something that really takes the owner of that small business the eye off the ball of serving their customers. So You know, when the governor announced this effort at the State of the State, I thought, wow, what a wonderful thing. What I see is introspection. Introspection is something that occurs in the private sector by the best employers out there that are looking in the mirror. They're saying, what are we doing right for our customers and our workforces? What are we doing wrong? What in some of our day-to-day operations, frankly, are antiquated and need to be thrown away in order to allow us a future in the new economy? Frankly, introspection is something that rarely happens in government, federal, state, or local. We need it more at the state government level. And when the governor announced this, I thought, this is wonderful. Although I was a little concerned because, frankly, I don't want to get political here, Governor, but your two predecessors, one Democrat, one Republican, also announced regulatory reform efforts at the beginning of their terms. 16 years later, nothing had occurred. There are a couple of issues on the agenda here that we're talking about: unit pricing reform, hoisting reform. Those were issues that we presented to both of those administrations with no actual action. So when I see actual work happening, you know, in about 125 days, real action and more action occurring as we move forward, I am very encouraged that introspection is happening with state government here in Massachusetts. And when you couple this regulatory reform effort with some of the things going on at Division of Insurance to help out small businesses with their health insurance, and a reflection on energy policy in Massachusetts, I'm seeing a widespread effort on introspection to make small businesses more competitive and give them a future here in the Commonwealth. And I thank you for that, Governor. It's very much appreciated. And with that, let me turn it over a longtime friend of mine, Brian Houghton of the Massachusetts Food Association.
You don't
Brian.
want to do a shred? You got to do a shred.
Oh, can I do a shred?
You've been waiting 16 years for this.
Oh, this is, yeah, you're right, you're right.
There you go.
Overdue. Here we go.
There you go.
That's wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Doesn't that feel good? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, John. I think it's done. On behalf of the members of the Massachusetts Food Association, which includes over 500 food stores, grocery stores in Massachusetts, and the industry that supports them, we certainly thank the governor and her team for everything they've done to make our lives a bit easier and make the lives easier for the shoppers, too. We've been living under unit pricing regulations, which dictate how a store must display what you're purchasing in a quantity, whether it's a liquid item in a gallon or a pint, or if it's a solid item that is in a pound or a weight measure. These regulations have been on the books for about 30 years was the last time they were looked at, in 1996. So things have changed. There's more on the shelves in the stores now than there was back then. Technology has caught up to everything now in the stores also. So this is a great step forward for our industry to be able to comply easier with the laws and regulations and make it easier for the shoppers, too, to compare for when they're shopping. So thank you for the long overdue look at the regulations and everything that's been going on. Getting rid of the red tape in our industry is something we've always wanted to do, we've always strived to do. We think the regulations are still fair and still great, and I think they're going to be great for the consumers and our industry, too. So thank you once again for everything you've done. I would like to turn it over, but I would also like to shred a little bit if I could.
Get you one in particular. All right, we'll give you a red tape one too. How's that? All right.
That is perfect.
That's great.
Thank you, Governor. And they are gone.
She was introduced earlier, but I just want to reintroduce our Undersecretary of ACABR, Layla D'Amelia.
So I want to thank everybody behind me, and their staff is in here. The amount of work that went into this. We have 150 sets of regulations in the ACABR portfolio, and it took a lot of time and effort to really go through and work with all of the teams to figure out what can we cut, what can we amend, what can we rescind. DOI is actually rescinding 4 of their reg sets that we no longer need in the Commonwealth. So really, like, the kudos goes to the folks behind me, the staff in the room, really, like, just the amount of work in a I mean, it was January 1st that the governor talked to us in her office after we signed the domestic money transmission bill for Division of Banks to say, can you take this on since OCABRA is the business regulation portfolio? And I said, absolutely, Governor, I can. And the folks behind me and the folks in this room are really the ones that deserve all of the kudos and the late nights and the weekend tags every time I had a question on one of their reg sets. So appreciate that. And I also know that a lot of the agencies, including the agency of the Office of Consumer Affairs, we are looking at lots of modernization projects that are happening. So we, in our office for home improvement contractor, we just deployed a new platform that makes it easier for contractors, easier for homeowners to find information, to register with the Commonwealth, and then working with the programs team to really think about the paperwork that we have been asking for. Is it necessary? It is a registration. It is not a license. So we've done a lot of work to really pull apart the programs within my office. And then the Division of Occupational Licensure, who is online, but they have 3 disparate systems. And right now, Sarah and her team are leading a 3-year project to take the permitting inspection, two licensing platforms to merge it into one for that consumer. And so she licenses over 500,000 people in the Commonwealth. So again, there's a lot of other types of reforms and modernization work going on along with the regulation review. So I'm so thankful to be part of the governor's team and the team that I have here at OCABRA. Just can't say enough of how remarkable they all are.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Undersecretary. We're going to have a big birthday cake for you, and I'm so glad that you could bring your daughter. But again, thank you very much to folks on our team for the work undertaken the last few months to get us to this point. And we're just going to keep going with more input and involvement from our businesses and from the public. With that, we're happy to take any on-topic questions.
Governor, I'm not sure if you ski or snowboard, but
Ski. I wish I snowboarded, but I started too late.
it seems like the
Now I'm gonna hurt
regulatory
myself.
for that industry gets rid of like specific language around how cautionary signs are supposed to be displayed, and it replaces it with more general requirements. I'm looking at one here: snowmaking hydrants, for instance, have to be marked with a horizontally or diagonally striped pole.
Yep.
Instead, you're replacing it with just a sign. How is that safer for skiers? And just what's the thinking around this?
Yeah. Does anyone want to take this up?
Happy to.
Commissioner, come on up.
Sure.
Step forward. Okay, great.
Commissioner Sarah
Are you a
Wilkinson.
skier or a snowboarder?
I am a little bit of both, but more of a skier. I started skiing when I was 3. So the regulations, what they do, they are not really about safety, and we have actually worked with all, I want to say it's 7, it might be 9, privately owned ski areas in Massachusetts, which is actually a feat in and of itself for those who are true skiers. I mean, I go to Colorado, many areas are being gobbled up by large corporations, right? One of the challenges, though, is for any business, you have certain locations you go to purchase things, right? So what we are doing with this regulation, we don't believe, and the ski areas don't believe it's any less safe for the skiers or snowboarders. What it is it's unifying it from the nationwide standard of what needs to be marked in every place, so you can actually go and get the unified. So in fact, it's also, in theory, you could argue safer for skiers because they're going to see the same warning signs in every state. Massachusetts isn't picking our own way in which to mark, which maybe isn't familiar for somebody in another state coming here to visit. So we don't think it's any less safe, but we do think it's easier for the businesses to more cheaply acquire those signs, and it's more universal for the skiers to identify them.
Thank you. Thank you. Did that answer your question? Do you ski or snowboard? You ski, okay. Good.
Governor, can you talk a little bit more about some specific examples of how the consumer benefits? Just so we can-
Yeah, and I welcome participation from our colleagues. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys know this, like government is there to serve a purpose. There are certain things that only government can do, like and are charged with. We got to ensure public safety, right? We got to ensure that food is safe and that our medicines are safe. And, as a result, there are different regulatory regimes around that. We got to make sure that businesses don't do shady things that undercut the good work and legit work that businesses are doing. And that's why we have a regulatory regime. And at the end of the day, whatever costs that a business has to incur whether it's buying signs or poles or whatever, those things get passed on to consumers. So anytime you're, both cutting costs for businesses by saying you don't have to do this anymore, or you're saving businesses time because you can go about it a different way, file electronically instead of by paper, forego doing X, Y, and Z, right? That saves time, which also saves a business cost, and then, that is passed on to the customer. So maybe, that's how I think of it anyhow.
I would add that some of the things that we want to do is also work with boards of registration, which also own these regulations. I have Frank Zona is here, and Frank and I have worked for maybe a dozen years trying to get the Cosmetology and Barbering Board to think about the market, to think about what consumers want. They want apprenticeships. Right now, that board does not offer apprenticeships. There are there are folks that want to start cosmetology schools, but the regulations say to them, you have to have 25 chairs, which means you have to have 25 sinks. That seems crazy in a place where someone wants to open a school and they only want to have a small school. So things like that is what we're trying to do and work with boards to really open it up for the market, but also for consumers to have sort of more of a choice. And so that's the balance that we do every day, is how do we protect consumers, but also make sure the bad actors aren't coming in to take advantage of consumers. So that's the business sort of balance that the folks behind me and I do almost every day, trying to figure out how do we not be burdensome, but also protect folks. I mean, again, I worked in John knows me from public safety days, and we used to always say then, and it's appropriate for today, if we could predict bad behavior, we wouldn't need state laws nor regulations, but unfortunately, that's not something we can do. So we put these rules in place to really make sure that everybody has the level playing field.
Governor, I guess this one might be for Mr. Flynn. Can you explain just more explicitly what difference shoppers are going to see when they go to the grocery store as a result of these changes?
The modifications made in the law are going to make it probably clearer for folks to be able to shop. A lot of the items that were covered under the unit pricing regulations were not, a lot of the items that are sold in a store now were not covered under the regulations prior to the rewrites. There were categories of things you had to do and how they would be displayed and how they would have to be priced and such. And now it's going to be easier for stores to do that, to have the message sent out to consumers. They don't have to all be in the orange and white tags. The orange was required by the state to be done on the shelf labels. Now they can pick a color. If the store has a brand color of red, say, they could use a red instead of an orange. So there's a little more freedom of expressing what the pricing has to be, and more items, I think, are going to be uniform as far as comparing them to other items, similar items.
Easier to compare and shop?
It should be at the end of the day, yes.
Have you thought about how these regulations are similar or different to those, in the idea of cutting red tape and making things more efficient? How is it similar or different?
Yeah. Well, I have a few things to offer about that. I was your attorney general, okay? I went after fraud and waste. I went after mismanagement. We investigated and prosecuted bad actors for that. What Doge turned out to be, though, was just indiscriminate firing of a whole bunch of people. Firing the people at the Weather Service who are going to tell us when the next hurricane is going to land, right? Firing people who do the inspections of medicines and food. Firing folks at the Veterans Center, right, who are providing care to, our moms and dads. That's what Doge has been, okay? What we are doing here is, I think, really like constructive, thoughtful engagement with the business community. What's working? What isn't working? Let's get rid of what's not working, and let's double down on what is working. And the best way we do this is by working together. It's why with everything we've done, when you talk about the siting and permitting of substations and stuff we need to bring more energy into the state, we did that with all of our stakeholders on that. Got it done, something that's going to make a difference. The housing bill, most transformative housing bill in history. We put together with developers, with builders, people across the board to figure out how do we bring online more housing. And that's the relationship that government should have with those it's here to serve. Taxpayers, residents, businesses, You know, that's the relationship. That's what this office is about. When we say Team Massachusetts and we wear it on our bracelets, that's a real ethos. That's a real thing that we have. So, you know, rather than destroying government and destroying people with expertise, you've seen all the people that Musk and company had to bring back once they realized, oh, shit, I fired the wrong guy. That's not what we're about, okay? We're about thoughtful, you know, introspection, that's a good word, right? And also delivering. The team operates with a heightened urgency every day, and we're not there yet in terms of everything that we've got to do, but directionally, we're just going to continue to be on this path. The other thing that I appreciate, the commissioners, you know, had an idea. They said, we're going to go out and talk directly to end users, okay? Whether, you know, you're a hair salon, or you're running a plumbing company, or just, you know, name the activity or engagement. Having conversations with real end users here in the state. What is it that you had to go through to get to where you are? And what could we get rid of? What could we make easier for the next person? And I really love that idea, and, you know, they're going to move forward with that. So that's why I say this is the first installment of Massachusetts Means Business, and there will be more to come.
Governor, 40 people were arrested yesterday on Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, allegedly living illegally in the country. I'm wondering if you got any information on that, heads up, you know, more info on why they were arrested?
Chris, I don't have information. I'd like information. I understand that there were 40 people picked up. I also have only heard about 2 with alleged criminal records. And, you know, this is part of the problem that we're seeing with ICE across the country, and certainly here in Massachusetts. People are being picked up. We have no information about their circumstance. There have been real questions raised about due process, and whether or not ICE and immigration officials are complying with due process here and in other states. And we need answers. And, you know, I've said from the beginning, it's one thing to go after and target those who have committed crimes, who are here unlawfully. You know, it's concerning when we see people, moms and dads, being ripped away from families, neighbors, you know, coworkers taken away. Literally, it looks like on the way to job sites in Nantucket and on the vineyard. So we need to know more. But, you know, the fear and the uncertainty, the anxiety that is created in these communities, I think is totally unnecessary. I don't think that this was what we thought that ICE was supposed to be doing. It was one thing to target, you know, the bad guys. And remember, I set up, as AG, I set up the New England Strike Force on fentanyl. I'm happy to cooperate with federal and local and state law enforcement when it comes to going out and chasing bad guys and putting them away. But what we're seeing, you know, were too many instances where real questions about due process are raised, and more than anything, we have zero information. Local police chiefs have zero information about what's happening in their communities. We at the state level have zero information about what's happening in communities, and that needs to change. We need to get answers. We need to get clarification from ICE, and it was very disturbing, needless to say, to wake up to that news about that activity on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. Apparently, you know, the Coast Guard was there and just was, again, I don't know all the circumstances, but from what I heard, just, you know, we're tailing people who were off to construction sites to do work, a day's work.
Governor, the Harvard Business Committee was concerned about the escalating Trump-Harvard feud, about the impact of business, if you do see fewer students and cuts and stuff like that. Is that on your radar? The Harvard Business Association concerned about this stuff?
Oh, I was going to say, the Harvard stuff is, yeah, kind of sort of on my radar, big time. But the Harvard Square Business Association, I'm glad you're raising that, because, you know, one of the things with this activity, with the Trump administration attacking our colleges and universities, attacking things that are really part of the economic lifeblood of our state, when you think about, you know, the GDP just produced. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering. It's on the order of $1 to $4 or $5, right? The input into these places and the output in terms of GDP for our state, for our country. I've talked to you about the devastating effects of cuts to science and research. You know, how many of our entrepreneurs, innovators, in fact, I just called one this morning, and I called another one yesterday. These are startups out of our universities that are doing incredibly cool work, growing businesses here in our state, including one who was a foreign student who came here to Massachusetts to study. So I've talked about the devastating impacts there. When it comes to local businesses, of course, right? The restaurants, right? Hospitality, the retail, the coffee shops that are there and, you know, are supported by our university students, faculty, our foreign students. What was the number the other day? Just Harvard alone. I mean, you remember the figure? I'll give you the exact figure. Do you remember the exact figure of what the foreign students at Harvard do into supporting the local GDP right in the Cambridge area? It's certainly, you know, it's certainly concerning, and this is what we're seeing playing out. This is the ripple effect of really wrong-headed attacks on not only, you know, a university, and if Harvard's attacked, anyone can be attacked. There's whole issues about academic freedom there, telling a college, and again, we're home to the first school in the country, right? Public school in the country and university in the country. You know, we've been about knowledge, learning, you know, taking in different viewpoints, growing educational experiences. And now, you know, the Trump administration, because they don't like Harvard, want to tell Harvard who they can let in, what they can teach, who they can hire. It's bad news for colleges and universities around the country. And the other thing I'd say is it's so dumb. It's stupid. Because right now, the only one winning with all this is China. Not just here in Massachusetts, but around America, because people are afraid to come here. If you've got a choice, I'm going to go up to McGill in Canada, or I'm going to go study in Europe, you know, or research there, or start a company there, you know, they're reading the room. There's a lot of uncertainty, just like the tariffs are creating so much uncertainty with the business community. The same thing's happening when it comes to students coming to this country and coming to Massachusetts. And so it's just really stupid, because now it is China who's on our campuses. I've talked about this before. The University of Massachusetts recruiting faculty who've been furloughed, recruiting our postdocs, saying, come over, you know, we'll give you a lab, we'll give you support, you know, you can research and incubate and innovate, start and grow businesses, not just in China, but the Middle East, Europe, you know, and this is not America first. This is making Donald Trump and the administration, by doing this, are making America less competitive and putting American interests last. And, you know, I'm very sorry that it has the effect, and it has the real ripple effect on our local businesses, on main streets, in communities around the state. You know, you think about all the communities. I was out at Mount Holyoke this weekend, and sorry guys, I know you're gonna pass out, but you know, this isn't just a Harvard issue. I talked to two graduates of Mount Holyoke, two foreign students, and they had planned to come here. They wanted to stay on and study here and work here, and instead they're going back home because they're just so nervous and uncertain. I talked to undergrads over the weekend at various institutions who don't have summer internships right now because life sciences, with NIH cuts and NSF cuts, have lost funding for these things. So we're talking about your college students today are affected already by the wrong-headed cuts that the Trump administration has made. It's terrible for our economy, and it's terrible for this country.
Governor, could I ask a non-topic question?
Okay.
Very quickly, credit unions are one of your best tools fighting poverty in our state. We have to be laboured under regulations that are over 100 years old. When the regulations were written, we didn't even have electricity in the state, so I wanted to see what plans Commissioner Gallagher has to even the playing field for credit unions.
I describe it as doing just that, Commissioner. It is evening the playing field with credit units.
The Heroes Act, by the way, Governor, 100,000 members of Hanson are delighted
Yep.
and doing much better because of that.
Yep, best veterans legislation in the country. I'm really proud of the team. Do you want to say anything, Commissioner, about credit unions?
I'll just say thank you for the credit union associations here, and I know you're at Hanscom and Metro, and we have Mass Bankers here and Mass Mortgage Bankers associations here. We look forward to working with you both, all of you, on priorities. As you know, we regulate state-chartered banks and credit unions, hundreds, thousands of non-bank licensees, and on the banking side, our efforts here are to try to make the state charter as competitive as possible. You're subject to federal laws as well, and there's a vacuum happening right now with federal leadership in the banking and regulatory space. So we'll look forward to working with you in the weeks and months ahead. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, great.